Hey everybody, today's video we're going to finish up this door. We've got the patch panels put on front and back, and we're going to do the filler work, body work, and get this in primer as well as the other door. But I also want to show you, I got Father's Day present. I'll show you that in a second. But we reached over 500 subscribers this week, and I want to thank everybody that subscribed and commented and liked and shared. It's been great. I didn't expect it to go this well. I've only started the channel I think back in November, and I'm really happy with it. It's been good for me too, because got to give me motivation to do my work and to do it right, because you guys are not going to let me slide on sketchy stuff. But thank you again. Let me show you my present I got. For Father's Day, my daughter had a designer come up with this logo for my channel, and she had this sign made, two-sided sign, and also I have the logo. That's going to be our new logo for the channel as well. But anyhow, this is pretty cool, I thought. Nice surprise. And besides that, for Father's Day, she took me out to the shooting range. We had a great day out there. But anyhow, I thought you'd like to see that. I'm pretty excited about it. When I fit this door panel up, just the way it worked out, it's short on this one side here. So the door gap, if you put a straight edge along the door, you'll see there's a gap there. So what I'm going to do, you could just put a series of tack welds on here, weld up the edge. But I got a piece of coat hanger, and that's about the right thickness. So I'm going to just weld that on there, give me a straight edge to work to. Okay, I've got that piece of coat hanger tack welded on here, and I'm going to fill in the bead here on both sides. This gives me a nice straight edge, builds it out, and I could grind it to get my door gap perfectly. But it's a little easier than trying to just put a bunch of weld on here. Here's what it looks like all welded up and ground down. I have to do the back side yet, but it leaves a nice smooth edge. I covered all my weld joints with Duraglass. I put a coat of that over. As you can see here, this hasn't been sanded yet. This I went over with 80 grit on the DA, and it looks pretty good, really. It gets in all the little pores, any little voids there might be. It basically waterproofs it. I did that on the outside as well, and have that sanded, and I already had put a coat of regular body filler over the outside. But I got to finish sanding this up, and we'll get to the outside. Here's that edge that I had welded up. Before I put this Bondo on, I did go across the weld seam for the patch panel, and also this edge and the perimeter of this patch with Duraglass. The reason being, I figure I would fair that in. The Duraglass is much harder than the Bondo would be, and be less likely to chip later on. I did put the Duraglass across the weld seam. That seals it, makes it waterproof. And then I did put, sanded that to rough it up, and then put body filler. I got a couple coats on here. These dark spots are dry guide coat that I use before I start fairing it. Shows your low spots. I also use this, as you could probably see from my videos, I use this flexible straight edge quite a bit. In this case, I use it as like you would in the old days for drafting before CAD/CAM. We used splines to make curves. You'd have reference points, and then you would flex it around the reference points, and would give you a nice smooth transition. I use that, and you could easily see where there would be a low spot underneath this this flexible rule. I use it in both axes, and it shows me where it needs attention. But anyhow, after I put the body filler on, I use this cheese grater file. It's like a Stanley Surfform, I believe it's called, and I rough out the Bondo and leave enough to finish it with sanding blocks. And then I use like a 12-inch block with the 40 grit to rough it in, using the guide coat so I don't go too far. And I try not to go down further than necessary, because then you just got to fill it again and sand it again. Anyhow, you work from 40 to 80 to like 150. But I still have a little more to do. But before I continue, even though this edge looks nice and straight with a straight edge on it, I'm going to put the hinges back on and hang the door on the cab and just double check my door gaps in case I have to make any adjustments. Now's the time to do it before I finish it. After hanging the door on, the gaps look pretty good. I just need to add a little bit more filler at the very bottom corner, but I'm going to take it off and finish it up. I hung the door on the cab and checked the door gaps. Everything seems to be in order. I do have all these low spots yet. As you can see, I used a dry guide coat. It looks like graphite powder, so I don't know if that's going to cause an adhesion problem. So I'm going to take some 40 grit on the DA and hog out these low spots, and then put another skim coat of body filler and bear it back down again. Okay, that body filler set up for about 5 minutes or so. It's still a little bit tacky. I don't know if it might be okay to do now with the cheese grater. You don't want the Bondo to get fully cured before you use the cheese grater. It's best just when it sets up. You're just going to knock off the high ridges and this cheese grater I'm using is a half or quarter round profile, and I'm not using a frame. They sell a frame for this, but it flexes, and you could use that to your advantage. Pull on both sides of this, and it removes it pretty fast and makes it into shavings instead of dust that you'll have to breathe. This cheese grater cuts only in one direction. Now when if you watch when I'm doing it, I'm not pulling straight back and forth because it'll cut a trough in the Bondo. So I kind of pull it diagonally, and that hits the high spots. It's pretty aggressive cut, so you don't want to get carried away with it. Don't forget, you can always take off more. You don't want to have to add more filler if you don't have to. If it's already there, no sense in taking it off and having to fill it again. Okay, I hit the high spots with the cheese grater, and now I'm going to put a guide coat on, which I'm using a dry guide coat, which is just some kind of black powder. I'm not sure what it is, but just smear it on. Now this is a door block with 40 grit, and I'm just going to go on the top of it. As you can see, the sanding block is hitting the high spots, and this guide code just shows you where the low spots are and where you need filler and where you need to sand. So as you can see, I'm doing it the same as with the cheese grater, kind of a diagonal movement. Same thing, if you keep going back and forth in a straight line, it'll cut a groove in it. So you want to try to follow the contour. This has a contour this way and roll that way. I was just working in the shop, and look what just landed over on the fence here. Let me see if I can zoom in. Look at the red-tailed hawk. Okay, I finished up this door. After I did the Bondo, there were still a couple of low spots and some deeper scratches that and pinholes in the Bondo itself. So I used this Evercoat Metal Glaze Ultra. It's a polyester like spot putty. It's very low viscosity compared to Bondo, and it fills in all these scratches. It's very fine too when you sand it. So I sanded everything, block sanded everything down with 80 grit and then 150. So it's ready for some epoxy primer, as is this other door that I had done before. So I resanded it. And I have some Eastwood epoxy primer. It's a 2-part 1-to-1 mix. So I'm gonna mix that up and shoot that on these areas. I'm using this Eastwood 2-part epoxy primer. It's a 1-to-1 mix. The reason it's not in the original Eastwood containers, the UPS guy, when he delivered it, threw it on my front porch and ruptured both of the cans where they were seeping out, so I had to transfer them into some other containers. But that's what it is. Trying to figure out, because this epoxy, you mix it and it's only good for 90 minutes, so you don't want to mix up more than you need. I'm guesstimating that I'm going to need about 5 ounces for those 2 doors. I may be way off. But so I need 2.5 ounces of each. You see I've got masking tape going on here like a V. It helps for pouring. The stuff is pretty thick, so you need to let it settle to get the actual level. That ended up just shy of 3 ounces, so I need to mix up 6 ounces of that. This is the hardener. Like I said, I had to swap containers. Just be sure you get it mixed up really well. Some epoxies require an induction time that you have to just let it sit to let the 2 components work with each other before you spray it. They claim that's not necessary with this Eastwood epoxy. This is just my cheap Harbor Freight $9.99 on sale HVLP gun. All right, that's one coat. I'm going to let it sit up for about 20 minutes and then give it another coat. Well, I got my 2 coats of epoxy primer on these doors. Everything really looks good, nice and smooth, and good coverage. That primer that I mixed up, I had a little more than an ounce left when I was done, so my initial guesstimate of 5 ounces would have been right on the money. You know, I don't like to run short in a job, but then again, I don't want to have too much extra. It's you can't put it back in the can, you know. Next, I will be doing body work on the cab and you know, getting all the dents out and doing any filler work I need. And then I'm going to spray high build primer on the cab and on the doors at the same time. That'll let me block sand everything out and try to get as good as I can. And then I'm going to seal it and paint my red paint on there. And then I'll be able to put my cab back on the frame. That's the plan anyhow, that's the goal. But I appreciate everybody coming to visit me in the shop here, and thank you all for supporting my channel, and I will see you next time.